This is the Psychedelic Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, David Flores, CEO of Global Track Solutions. And with me here today is Anthony Tennyson. He is the CEO of Awakn Life Sciences, a biotechnology company with clinical operations developing and delivering psychedelic medicine to treat addiction. Anthony, it is a pleasure to have you here on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, Dave, and or David, sorry, and it's an absolute pleasure to be on your show and to get an opportunity to speak with you and also to speak with your audience. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have the opportunity to highlight and feature Awakn here with our audience. So this will be a great introduction to the company. And so I guess with that, if you wouldn't mind kicking things off with us, maybe providing with us an overview of Awakn Life Sciences, how the company came to be, how you became involved in the company, and maybe touch on why specifically the company is focused here on developing solutions for addiction.
Okay, listen, those are great questions. So a little bit overview of the company. So like you said in your intro, we're a biotechnology company with clinical operations. And that means we're focused on doing two things, which is development, that's the biotech side, and delivery, that's the clinical operations side. So what we're doing is we're developing psychedelic drugs and psychedelic therapies to better treat addiction. And then we're going to deliver those therapies and in time deliver those drugs in the clinics as we open and roll them out across the UK and the EU. So that's really us. You know, we've got one of the best teams in the world, we believe, who are focused on the use of psychedelic drugs and therapies to better treat addiction, with Professor David Nutt, Dr. Ben Sessa, Professor Celia Morgan. You know, David Nutt is David Nutt. Everyone kind of knows him. Most people know Professor or Dr. Ben Sessa, but Professor Celia Morgan, she's the co-head of department in the University of Exeter, and she actually led and was a principal investigator on the world's only trial for ketamine-assisted psychotherapy for alcohol use disorder. So really, really strong team. And so, you know, that team is focused on the development and the delivery. We've got a near-term focus on the UK from our clinical perspective, but we will then be looking to roll out additional clinics across continental Europe in due course. So in summary, really, really strong team with deep experience in using psychedelic drugs and therapies to treat addiction. We've built upon that with the company with two core focuses, which is development and delivery of drugs and therapies to treat addiction, with a European, UK, EU focus for the company. Why are we focused on addiction? Well, we're focused on addiction for a couple of reasons. I've worked in financial services for many years before I had the pleasure of joining Awakn, and the financial services district in Dublin is in an area is adjacent to the North Inner City, which is one of the areas suffering the most from social disadvantage in Ireland. So I've seen up close and personal the damage that addictive substances, primarily heroin, does and has done to individuals, families, and communities. Also, being an Irish guy, I'm very experienced with the damage and challenges that alcohol addiction creates in society, both from an actual addiction perspective, but actually just from an actual destruction on a Friday and Saturday night, and the police and the health services have to just tidy up the mess. So deep, you know, close learning experience on the damages alcohol have done to society. So that's part of my motivation. Then when I look at the team, Professor David Nutt, global authority on alcohol addiction, opioid addiction, and gambling addiction. Professor Celia Morgan, European authority on alcohol addiction and gambling addiction. And Ben led the world's only trial for MDMA-assisted psychotherapy for alcohol use disorder. So we have a core competency in developing and using psychedelic drugs and therapies to treat addiction. So that's kind of why we focus there. And then how did the company come about? Myself, Jonathan Hell, the CFO, George Scorsis, the chairman, know each other from previous work. Even though I was in the financial services industry, I kind of knew them in the periphery, and they were contemplating putting Awakn Life Sciences together. They heard that I wanted to do something much more entrepreneurial, because as enjoyable as my life was in financial services, it really wasn't doing it for me. So we put our heads together. We decided to co-found Awakn Life Sciences, and then we were lucky enough to have conversations going with Dr. Ben Sessa, and Ben joined us as a co-founder, and we're the four co-founders of the company. And it was from there, when we looked around at the assets and the societal need, we pointed the company at addiction And that's where we're focused on: development, delivery, psychedelic drugs, therapies to treat addiction.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's no denying the fact. I mean, addiction is a global crisis, and it's one that, for me, it's also personal in the sense that I lost my father to alcohol addiction 3 years ago. He suffered for many, many years. It led to depression, and so it's a big reason why I got involved here in the psychedelic space and seeing these medicines and these drugs based in psychedelics and how they have been able to transform and change the lives of so many different people. So, I really am, a huge advocate of what you guys are focused on and what you guys are doing here. And so maybe with that, would you want to elaborate a little bit more here on the psychedelic therapy delivery activities associated with Awakn?
Yeah, well, listen. Before I answer that question, please accept my wholehearted condolences for your father. I've I haven't lost anyone to addiction, but I know people who have lost close people to them from addiction, and it's not pleasant, and it's tough on everyone, on the individual and their family. So please accept my
Thank you.
sympathies or condolences. Um, so yeah, on the delivery side, so we are focused on delivering ketamine-assisted psychotherapy in the near term in our clinics as we open them up across the UK in the near term, and then continental Europe in the medium term. We have on the roadmap to open 3 clinics in the UK this year. So that is London, Bristol, and Manchester. Now, we've been delayed opening our first clinic in Bristol. And if I'm ever to give anyone advice, it's don't look to open your first clinic in the middle of COVID. And if that clinic involves doing some deep renovation of an old Victorian building. I don't know if you've ever seen the film Money Pit, but whatever could have gone wrong could have gone wrong. We had to rewire the things. Yeah. Like it was, the builders removed something. It was like, oh look, daylight. There isn't meant to be daylight. It was like, yeah. So we were delayed by that, but then Bristol was put into a fairly serious lockdown for an extended period of time. So that delayed our renovation. So we're a little bit delayed with opening our first clinic, but that'll be open in September, October of this year. Our second clinic in London will be open in October or November, and then our third clinic November or December. So that's the roadmap for this year. Then a few more clinics in the UK next year, before ideally moving beyond the UK into Ireland latter half of next year, before then in 2023 moving into continental Europe. And the goal is to have 20 clinics across the UK and the EU by the end of 2024. Those clinics will deliver ketamine-assisted psychotherapy in the near term, but we will then be utilizing other compounds and other methodologies if and as when they are rescheduled in the UK and the EU. Great thing about ketamine is it's a Schedule 2 compound in the UK, and it's a Schedule 3 compound across the UK and the EU. So we can deliver it immediately in our clinics. And primary reason for that is each one of our clinics is and will be led by a consultant level psychiatrist. So what we're doing is we're providing a medical service, and we're permission to prescribe ketamine off label because our practitioners are deeply experienced.
Yeah, and I mean, me being based here in the U.S., we have ketamine assisted therapy clinics sprouting up all across the U.S. And I mean, I'm already seeing and hearing of stories of, transformative change in individuals that have been able to access these clinics. So it's very exciting and certainly encouraging. No question about that. Now, you mentioned also earlier Professor David Nutt, who I know recently joined Awakn Life Sciences team as the Chief Research Officer. He, of course, is a renowned neuroscientist. I want to talk a little bit more about his addition to the team, and if you could maybe elaborate a little bit more on the, what he brings to Awakn Life Sciences here.
He brings the biggest brain in the business. Is the lightest way to put it. And if you ever want to feel intellectually out of your depth, just have a conversation with David. But what does he bring? He's a wonderfully nice person. I'm incredibly fond of him. We're absolutely, we are lucky to have him as our Chief Research Officer. He was chair of our scientific advisory committee before that, but now coming on to our executive team as a CXO or Chief Research Officer is a real endorsement of what he has, and it's trust. He has trust and he has belief in what Awakn are doing and what we are doing. He believes that we have the ability to change how addiction is treated. And addiction affects, by our calculation, between 15 and 20% of the adult population globally. So depending on whereabouts it is, that's about 800 million to 1.1 or 1.2 billion people suffering from either a substance addiction or a behavioral addiction. So substance like alcohol, opioid, tobacco, behavioral addictions like gambling addiction or pornography addiction. And David believes in us, and that is why he has joined us in a chief role. What does he bring to the team? Well, he brings a global authority, a position of global authority to bear for Awakn. He is a global authority in psychedelics. He's a global authority on alcohol addiction. He's a global authority on gambling addiction and opioid addiction. He was the former drug advisor to the UK state, until he told them exactly what they should do, which is decriminalize, which was, not what they were hoping the answer to their question was, but it was the right answer. So, but he was that. He's the professor emeritus in the Imperial University in London. He's written 400 or published 400 papers on addiction, and he's written, I think it's 5 books on addiction, but it could be 10. It just depends on what day of the week it is. But he's an authority in the industry, an incredibly nice man, and an absolute pleasure to work with as well. And then what was really good is not only is he working with us, but we acquired 6 years worth of proprietary research from David, from his consultancy company, before he joined us as a CRO. And in that is some incredible assets. So not only do we have Dave, the pleasure of David's company, we have access to David's brain, but we also have access to 6 years worth of proprietary research on psychedelics and addiction, the kind of to the level of detail that we don't believe many other firms do. I'm sure there are some firms that do, but we believe we're in the leading pack now because of the assets and the IP and the know-how that are sitting within our firm.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, his addition to the Awakn team, really it puts you guys in a very advantageous position, being able to tap into his, wealth of knowledge and experience as it relates to addiction. I would imagine you would agree with the fact that, he is going to play a very critical role in helping to move things forward here for the company, right?
Yes, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree, and that is correct. And he is already doing so. The speed at which we were moving fast anyway, and we had discussions with David because he was the chair of our scientific advisory board. But we're now able to accelerate our drug discovery activities. So in the development side of our business, we're doing a number of things, but one of them is drug discovery. And having access to David and to his research is really, really helping us accelerate that drug discovery activity, which is specifically targeted around developing the next generation of psychedelics to better treat addiction. And I dare say there isn't a better brain on the planet better suited to help us accelerate the development of the next generation of psychedelics to better treat addiction.
Yeah, I mean, that's why when I first saw the news of his addition to your team, I was like, this is big, this is huge, so I mean, congratulations on that. And I mean, I think it really helps set a very, very solid foundation here for your company as it continues to move forward here. Now, when we talk about developing this next generation of psychedelic medicines, I want to talk a little bit about some other news that came out here from the company recently, and that was the patents that have been filed on 2 development candidates. Awakn 001, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, and Awakn 002, both of which are next generation novel new chemical entities that the company claims will bring together the best therapeutic characteristics of MDMA. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on this piece of news here, which I know was also very, very big and prominent here for the company?
Yeah, we're absolutely pleased to. So yeah, it's a key milestone for us. It's the filing of our first patents for our first 2 discovery candidate molecules or compounds. So part of those assets that I mentioned earlier on that we acquired from Professor David Nutt's consultancy company back on the 9th of March, we acquired 2 things. We acquired details of a number of molecules that potentially could be faster acting, could potentially work like MDMA, and would potentially be novel, so therefore patentable. And then also details of newly discovered receptor sites that MDMA interacts with at a neurobiological level. So 2 of the receptor sites that MDMA interacts with are well understood. We've acquired details from David of 3 newly discovered receptor sites that MDMA interacts with, that we believe no one else in the world knows about. So what we did is we got our chemists and our IP lawyer to go through the data that we acquired and look at those molecules. And we've confirmed that of the number of molecules we acquired, 2 were completely novel, had the potential to work like MDMA, but because of their structure, they could work in a much shorter window with a shorter onset and a shorter or quicker onset and a shorter half-life. And so because of that, we think that they may work in a shorter window. We don't know the exact time. And therefore they would enable, look, as good as MDMA-assisted psychotherapy is, or psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy in general, it takes quite a long time with the recovery period. And that's great when you've got your own clinics like we do. But if you're trying to scale into the public healthcare system, that's a challenge. So what we wanted to do is take the benefits of psychedelics, make them available in a window that would be more palatable to the public healthcare system. And that's really what we're exploring. So these are, as far as I'm concerned, very, very important molecules that we filed, very important patents that we filed, because we think we've created a novel version, a unique version or patentable version of MDMA that will work in 2 hours. That's kind of groundbreaking. But that's only one of a lot of things that we're doing in development. We've also got a very, very detailed hit to lead. So that's a discovery program with Evotech, which is the world's largest drug discovery company with a deep experience in discovering and developing drugs that interact with the serotonin transporter mechanisms at a neurobiological level. That's a 10-month hit to lead program, which should generate a number of further candidate molecules at the end of it. And we've got a data readout in month 4 from that program. So about September time, we should be able to produce results on that. That's our kind of long-term strategy. Those molecules we acquired from David and what we're doing with Evotech. Medium term, it's to bring MDMA forward, to secure marketing authorization for MDMA, treat alcohol use disorder. We will be starting the world's only trial for MDMA for alcohol use disorder. It's a phase 2B trial, building on Ben's phase 2A trial. That's due to start latter half of this year. That's our medium-term plan. And then our immediate term plan is we've acquired the IP from Celia Morgan's trial that I mentioned at the beginning here, which was a combined phase 2AB trial for ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. Results of that are going to be published in the American Journal of Psychiatry in the coming weeks. And when they're published, they should indicate that CAP for AUD was more effective than anything else out there. We've licensed the IP from that trial, and we'll be delivering that proprietary methodology in our clinics as we open them. So we've got a lot going on in the development side of the business alone.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely appears that the ingredients are in place, and right in front of you to really build something that I would imagine is different than any other company that's out there. I mean, we're seeing lots of companies beginning to sprout up here throughout the psychedelic space. And so I just, I see the elements that are in place here with what you guys have been able to assemble. And it, again, I go back to the word advantageous. I really, see it that way. And so I guess, with this final question here to maybe wrap things up, big picture, bringing all of these elements and these ingredients, if you will, together, where do you see the company going? I mean, maybe walk us through, where you see things going through the next 12 months, and then maybe bigger picture, where are we in 3 or 4 years from now?
Okay, so 12 months time, and I can kind of speak to this because they're the milestones that were in our management information circular, right? So I'm not, this is publicly available information. 12 months time on the development side of the business. Within MDMA, we would aim to have ethics approval from the MHRA, which is the competent authority in the UK, first time in human for that trial, and then executing on that trial. And because it's a placebo-controlled trial, we can't report out any data. Once we've gone beyond first time in human, that's it, we go dark. So ethics, first time in human this calendar year, then it's dark till we finish the trial, 18 to 24 months. On the new chemical entity or drug discovery program, like I mentioned before, it'll be that hit to lead execution and completion of that 10-month hit to lead program with Evotech, with ideally producing a few candidate molecules at the end, or candidates at the end of that program. So that's what we're doing on the development side. We're also noodling around on what to do with ketamine research, but that's a bit of a higher risk research piece because it's generic, but we'll probably noodle on that for a while. And then on the delivery side, it's within 12 months, it should be 5 clinics in the UK and 1 clinic in Ireland. And everything we're developing in the development business, we're bringing it forward and we're delivering it in the delivery business. But our clinics, we're only going to have clinics in the UK, EU. There's a whole bigger world beyond the UK and EU. And there's a whole load of individuals, families, and communities that need to be helped. So what we'll be doing is we'll be packaging up what it makes sense to package up, and we'll be licensing that into territories where we don't have clinics operational. So, for example, I believe there's about 125,000 addiction treatment practitioners in the US. I imagine a certain proportion of those are treating people suffering from alcohol use disorder. And they're using those methodologies that, according to the WHO, have a 70% failure rate within the first 12 months. Well, although not published, we believe that ketamine-assisted psychotherapy will be more effective than that. So it wouldn't actually be right for us to just, put our arms around, there's no need to deliver it in our clinics. So what we're working to try and do now is to try and package that up and make it available into the North American market. So that's where I see us over the next 18 months. Licensing agreements into the North American market, clinics, UK, Ireland, beginning to look into continental Europe. And then on the development side, MDMA phase 2B trial, which is part of a program to secure marketing authorization for MDMA to treat alcohol use disorder in the UK and the EU, and executing hard and fast on developing our own drugs, because the MDMA is a medium-term strategy, our own drugs is a long-term strategy, and commercialization of the ketamine assets, that's a near-term strategy.
Yeah, and I just see you guys poised for so many big things here. The potential is certainly there, and I personally look forward to continuing to following the story here of Awakn Life Sciences. I just again, I see all of the pieces, in place and coming together slowly here. So I commend you, for the job that you've done in bringing everything together so far. Anthony, is there anything else that you'd like to add here before we part ways here for the time being? I mean, this has been a great first introduction, for our audience here at Psychedelic Spotlight. So I want to thank you again for taking the time to do this. But is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, first of all, listen, it was an absolute pleasure to speak with you and to get a chance to communicate with your audience. Secondly, listen, it's not really about me, it's the team. We've got the best team who are deeply, deeply committed and believe in what we're doing. But actually, most importantly, it's about the individuals, the families, and the communities that require help, because addiction is not being treated properly or appropriately. And we want to change that and deliver hope to those individuals, those families, and their communities, because it's just the bloody right thing to do.
I could not agree with you more on that. And I want to thank you again for that passion that you have. I think this is such an important part of how we are going to inspire this transformative change, when it comes to addiction. So thank you again. We will make sure that we get the company's website up here. I want to encourage everyone to visit the site and continuing to follow the story here of Awakn Life Sciences. Anthony, thank you so much again. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Speak to you again soon.
Thank you.